Two men journey to the bars and restaurants of Scandinavia to find amazing beers, always with the same question.
Hey, what's on tap?
It's time to find out.
Hello, welcome back to What's on Tap podcast, where we're once again back. We usually
Very
are.
astute of you. We are back.
We usually are.
Once a week, we come to you on Thursdays with a new episode. And this week's episode is hosted by Stefan.
Yeah, because you brought... Wait, it is?
I'm one of the hosts.
Yeah. Then it's hosted by Martin as well.
Exactly.
Also,
I'm glad we were able to clarify that.
We keep saying that we're back, but it's really that we're still here.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you... Is it the glass half full kind of situation? Are we still here or are we back?
Which one's worse?
Still
here.
Still here kind of feels like...
Meaning that we could fall off at any second.
Yep.
But back meant that we went away.
We made a choice. We made a choice to come back.
Yeah, but
still here means that we have to do this because we're under obligation.
But back meant that we went away.
True.
Several of our listeners don't listen to us every week. They save up a number of episodes and then they just plow through them.
Well, considering that most of our episodes are anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes long, I'm not surprised.
No.
You can really binge listen pretty easily on this because they don't take up a lot of time.
The thought of someone binging us is kind of scary.
I can see the listening numbers when someone comes in and just does a huge binge because our numbers will suddenly spike for like a day, and I'm like, oh, somebody just downloaded like 30 episodes or something.
So we brought the beer each.
Yes.
You brought the first one.
We did. So this is from Abomination Brewing Company. It is the Wandering into the Fog series, and there is a series of these beers, and they each feature a different hop.
Cool.
So this was one of the highest rated. I don't know if it was the highest rated or the second highest rated, but it was the highest rated I could get my hands on.
Nice.
So this is the Nelson Sauvin edition of this, and it is 8.6 ABV.
Sweet.
Double IPA. Single hop Nelson Sauvin.
So Nelson Sauvin, that's New Zealand, right?
It is a New Zealand hop.
Kind of fruity.
Yeah. It's definitely got that fruitiness to it.
It smells pretty promising.
Yeah. I think it smells really nice. I get a little bit of like leather maybe on it, or there's an additional flavor there that I can't quite put my finger on. But I'm super excited about this. Let's dig into it.
Let's see if it's found. Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's see if it's found in the flavor, and maybe I'll pick up on it as well.
I really like the Nelson Sauvin hop because I think it's just a really pleasant, clean hop varietal.
It has a good aftertaste.
Great aftertaste. It's a little bit of a slightly bitter finish, and it just has this like really enjoyable flavor profile to it.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of pineapple, a little bit of melon, fruity, tropical.
But it's a good kind of melon.
Yeah. This has got a light sweetness to it in the end.
Yeah.
This is a pretty overall very nice beer.
I'm not tasting the 8.6%.
No.
They've made this well.
What would be fun is is to have kind of a vertical of these, so you could really tell.
Yeah.
Like maybe have 3 or 4 of them in a row, to be able to try what the hops do to the beer and how they've manipulated it or changed it or yeah. And I think it'd be quite a fun little experiment because all of these have gotten basically pretty good reviews, somewhere in the 4 to 4.5 kind of range there.
I remember in 2011 when Mikkeller had an event at their original Victoria Garden place where they had 17 different single hop beers available at the same time. It has to be, I think it was 17 different, maybe 19 different.
Wow.
And everyone who was there got to vote, and then afterwards they made the beer called Mikkeller 19.
Oh, yeah,
It had a percentage of the hops based on the votes.
Based on the votes, okay.
And that beer was like, yeah, whatever, regular IPA. But having so many different hops next to each other, they tasted completely different.
Yeah. I mean, it's really... so, when you see beers that are blending different hops, or you see a single hop varietal, I think single hop varietals are really bold. Because, I mean, you're really stressing that hop in the most direct way you possibly can. And you're hoping, or you're skillful enough that you're bringing out the best of what that hop can do. And some hops, you can immediately go, this is what I love in a beer. And some beers, some hops you're kind of like, this is what I hate in a beer. So it really helps you understand who you are as a beer drinker in a lot of ways. And I wish more breweries would do these kind of single hop wines, because I think it shows the skill and professionalism of a brewery.
Yes.
And their willingness to not hide behind kind of a blending of hops to where you can kind of fudge it a little. And it's kind of like whenever you take a stout and you put in a bunch of adjuncts.
Yeah.
So you can make the worst stout taste pretty good by adding a bunch of adjuncts in the right way.
That's how I homebrew.
Yep.
This is a problem in the wine world. I'm not very well versed in the wine world, but I know one thing, and that's there's a loophole in European laws where if you, let's say you make a Chardonnay beer, if you add up to 3% of another white wine hop, let's say Sauvignon Blanc, you don't have to put that on the label. And if you add 3% of another white wine, you don't have to add that. It's when you go over 3% of the grape that you need to put it.
So you could add multiple grapes
You
as
could
long
add-
as they
you-
don't ever go over 3%.
You could add 20 different grapes to your Chardonnay, have 3% of each, and now you have 30%. Did I count? You have 40% Chardonnay, and it's still a Chardonnay only wine because of this loophole. And there's no real way for a consumer to see through this lie, but it has to be the same. I mean, if you can make a single grape wine and make it taste good, then of course you're better than the ones who sneak in other hops just because they don't have to.
All right, so I've heard this rumor, and I've never really thought about it until you just mentioned that, but I've actually heard that these box wines that we buy in Sweden are actually mixed in Sweden and then bagged and packaged.
There are companies that do it, for sure.
Okay.
As far as I know, there's a Scanian wine producer called Nordic Sea Winery that does produce their own wines. I don't know if they do it in Sweden. I think they own wine yards in Europe, but they do also. But it's, for me, it's also a rumor. But I've heard it from multiple sources.
Yes, I've heard it from multiple sources as well.
Some sources
So that-
I really trust that yes, they are blended in Sweden.
Right, so there's a Sweden-only import. So what they do is they bring in all the different... Maybe they buy 3 or 4 different wines. They blend them together and they sell them as a pre-packaged box wine from a particular country.
Yes,
Which would explain why there's such a glut of South African wines in Sweden.
Yes, I think so. Because they're probably easy to buy
masses of. And
but even for me, it's also a rumor. But the 3% grape rule I've read about.
Okay.
And not just heard a rumor, but yes, this is the rule.
Well, it's one of those things where it's so prevalent that me, who doesn't really know that much about it, has heard this rumor, and you, who have lived here your entire life, I've also heard this rumor, and we both got it from enough sources that we're kind of like, it feels pretty credible. So I was hoping you could give more insight into this.
But those wines aren't presenting themselves as true artisan wines coming from a small farm with just a family. They're presented as, here is South African wine in a box. You will like it. That's basically all they're promising. They're not promising.
But they're not selling. I mean, I can't think of a wine in a box that's just been like white wine or table wine, which is basically what the mass mixed kind of things. It's almost always like Chardonnay Sauvignon Blanc or Shiraz Cabernet Sauvignon.
But that's probably still true.
It is. It is, but you see that in bottles as well.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, is it coming from the winery that does Shiraz and they do Cabernet Sauvignon grapes because they both grow in South Africa or Australia or whatever, or is it they've just gotten two different varietals from South Africa or Australia, and then they've created their own label inside of Sweden, and then they just mix it together, and then they just get whatever, and they kind of make it try to taste the same.
I mean, when you go for a box wine, do you really expect...
I expect only the highest of quality in a wine that comes in a 3-liter pouch.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm just saying, it does make a difference, though, and it's important to know what the process is and where it comes from.
Definitely, because we drink so much beer and we talk so much about beer, and we care so much about the heritage and the origins of basically every beer we drink.
The provenance.
Yeah, sure. The provenance of the beers we drink, because we care about the hops, we care about the regions and stuff. So yes, we should be more outraged that the wine industry is getting diluted by this bullshittery. I just don't want it to spill over into beerdom.
But still, I mean, I can buy 3 liters of wine for $20, so
yeah,
you know it's going to be good.
But going back to this beer,
yes,
where is it from? Where's Abomination from?
U.S. No.
Oh, it's from that's really narrows it down. It's from North Haven, Connecticut.
Yep, that's about as narrow as you can get it.
Yeah, but that's
they don't have a zip code on there.
That's
but yeah,
way more narrow than the United States. It's from
where.
It's from the Americas.
Exactly. North, South, Central, whatever.
Yes.
Americas.
West.
Yes. What?
You never learned about the West Americas?
That's a new one for me.
We've been keeping it from you because you would get
hidden
jealous.
America.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you give Abominations or what was it called? Wandering into the Fog.
4.25.
Me too. It's a lot of fun.
Yes.
I really enjoy this. It also tells me that if a beer has Nelson Sauvin, I'm probably going to like it.
Me too.
Okay. So next up is the beer that you brought
Yes.
from Cascade. So Cascade primarily in Europe has been sold in 750 milliliter bottles.
And they're super sour, super acidic.
Dusty AF. And expensive as AF too, man.
Yes.
They usually come in around 250, 300 crown bottles minimum.
Yeah. So drinking one bottle is an ordeal. It's difficult. It's draining.
It's not something you do on your own. You share it with friends.
You want to quit halfway through because I'm getting an ulcer.
Yeah. It's like, that's I think my tooth might be infected because this is really digging into that.
But this is in a 33 centiliter can, and it's Sang Royale 2020.
Yes, or Sang Rouge.
Sang Rouge is not Royale. There is a Sang Royale.
Well, this is Sang Rouge.
This is Sang Rouge.
It's a sour red ale aged in oak cask. So I would say the closest you can come to this is probably a Flemish Red.
Yeah, probably.
Would be about the equivalent. But basically on the smell, it has a bit of that Flemish Red smell. It doesn't have the turpentine nail varnish that you sometimes get. But this is a blend of sour red ales aged in select red wine barrels and oak puncheons for up to 2 years, highlighting the depth and complexity of our base red ale without the influence of additional fruit and spices. The rare project features notes of roasted red malts, dried currants, aged red wine, and toasted oak. Comes in at a 7.8%. That's kind of high. Yeah.
It smells like a Flemish Red without nail varnish.
Yeah, very much so.
A little bit acidic, a little bit sweet and sour. Stefan got beer in his mustache.
I sniffed it way too hard. It kind of went in my nose a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it smells really good. I'm super excited about this.
Cheers.
As you may know, I love a good Flemish Red. So anything that can bring me to that, I'm quite excited to try.
quite a good acidity.
It's not the. It's still pretty acidic. It's still
very sweet as well.
Mm-hmm. This is a mouth-watering kind of sour. This is the kind of sour when I first started drinking sours, I tended to avoid because I hated it so much. And then now, when you try sours, they're not nearly as acidic as this. So it's kind of rough in some ways. This is kind of like when the brewery Teru puts out a sour, and you're kind of like, buckle up, babies, you're in for a ride. Cascade is in that wheelhouse as well. This is a strap your seatbelt on because you're about to get punched in the mouth, and you're probably going to like it.
Yeah, but the way I remember Cascade is more difficult to drink than this. This is very easy to drink.
It is. It's much easier than I would say most Cascade beers are, but it's still pretty intense. Let's just say, I'm glad it's coming in a 33 cylinder can.
It's a good size for.
I don't think I need more than what I have in my glass.
No.
This is a beer where I think you're glad to try it. It's interesting. It's complex. There's a lot going on here. But once you finish what you have in your glass, you're kind of like, yeah, I'm good here.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree.
And again, I think this is the problem I have with a lot of Cascade beers is they're never bad. They're almost always enjoyable, and I've had many pleasant brewery, Cascade.
But you never want more than 10 centiliters.
Yeah, exactly. Which for me is not a plus.
No.
Because for instance, a few years ago we did the Advent calendar, and we had this BrewDog. When BrewDog put out a calendar for the people that bought stock, you could buy a special calendar, and one of the beers in there was a Tokyo Imperial Stout or whatever it's called. And while everyone thought it was really good, none of us finished our glass.
No.
And we're talking about 10 cylinders again. And it was kind of like, yeah, we all like this, but at the same time, it's like, I don't need any more, and I don't want to finish what I have. But it tastes good.
Yeah.
This is kind of one of those in the same way. It's like,
So what do you think about this one?
It's too sour for me. It's aggressive. It's abrasive.
It's kind of aggressive.
It is. It gets in your face and kind of slaps you around a little bit, roughs you up.
I've noticed that I have a small cut in my lower gums.
Yep.
Because one tiny piece of my mouth is on fire right now from this acidity.
Yep. I would say if you like sour beers, like really aggressive sour beers, you're probably going to think this is an extremely pleasant beer. I think it's a little too aggressive for me. And maybe this is on the, and I will use a hot sauce equivalent for this, where if you drink a lot of super aggressive sour beers, you build up a tolerance and you just kind of like look for that thrill ride of sourness. The same way where if you eat a lot of hot sauces, the more hot sauces you eat, you're always on the lookout for
the next hottest sauce.
The next hottest sauce. And I think that Cascade is that brewery that's just like, you know what? You don't like sour beers? That's fine. You don't like a beer that just, mule punches you, mule kicks you in the teeth and makes you question your belief in sour beers? That's okay. This beer isn't for you. This is for a specific audience. I think Brewery Teru does that quite often, where they put out a lot of sour beers, and they're so just unapologetically intense. It's kind of like, no, this beer isn't for me, but I appreciate the craft and the skill that went into making the beer, but this is not something I enjoy.
No.
And Cascade is that brewery for me. I appreciate the skill and the quality, but I don't know that I really enjoy their beers that much.
So rating.
I'm going to give this. I'm going to sip. I will give it. I just gonna give it 3.75.
Oh, that's way higher than I expected. I am in between 3.75 and 4. Maybe a weak 4 or a strong 3.75.
I think it's a solid 3.75.
I'll give it a 4. I'm a little bit more immune to this super acidity.
I think if there had been more to it, I think that the lack of additional fruits or spices kind of hurts this beer a little bit.
It's quite jammy.
Yeah, and I wish it leaned towards plums or cherries or a fruit. I think that would have grounded the beer a little bit better. Because the one thing I like about Flemish Reds is there's definitely a specific flavor profile for this. And while this has a very nice, like you said, jamminess to it and a tartness to it, it is not quite grounded enough in any one area that it makes it something that I'm super excited about. I want to try again. But I'm really letting out to try it, especially in the can.
But that's the thing. I'm giving it a 4 because we're only sharing 33 centiliters. Mm-hmm. If we were sharing 75, a big bottle, I would grow tired of it way before we reached half.
I couldn't finish a big bottle of this.
No.
Between two of us, this is like if you have 8 people, you split a bottle of this, and then everyone gets a little bit, and everyone's happy, and they've tried it, and they can move on to the next beer.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a reason why I haven't bought a Cascade beer in like 3 years.
me too.
All right, you can find us online at what'sontappodcast.com. Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you can find quality podcasts.
Messages in bottles.
That has been our new way of I've just been putting QR codes in bottles and then just dumping them into the sea.
Yes.
At some point, they're going to catch me, but right now, the Oresund is free trade.
Yes. And like these, when planes drop pamphlets over unsuspecting populations with propaganda, that's where you'll find What's on Tap podcast.
That's our primary way of communicating with our audiences, is through mass drops of propaganda information.
Oh, that's the best.
That's why Chairman Mao is our figurehead now.
So until next time,
keep drinking, you dum-dums.
This podcast is part of the Pod Syndicate family. For more criminally compelling shows, articles, and conversations, head to wearepodsyndicate.com.